Hey guys, and welcome back to Betwixt the Books. We are here with our very first reading roundtable of 2026. We had a very loose, open theme for this one. Today, we are all bringing a book that we meant to read last year in 2025. If you haven't been to one of these before, me and Gretchen, you know us from the channel, have brought on a couple of our bookish friends. These are repeat guests. You've seen them before, and if you haven't, go back and watch those other episodes. They're super fun. But we all come on, we talk about a book that we read together. We learn about some cool books that we may have never heard of before, and just get to chat about all sorts of stuff. So yeah, today we're talking about something we meant to read last year. So it's pretty open-ended. We don't know what's going to come up, but I hope you enjoy. Grab a hot beverage, sit down, chat. We'll go around, introduce ourselves if you haven't seen us, and then we'll talk about our books.
So hi, I'm Gretchen. Hopefully you know my face, or maybe you're just here for Michaela's horror content and you don't need any of my romance shenanigans. That's fine. I am normally a romance reader. And I also read history, nonfiction, stuff like that. My goal for 2025 was to get back into reading more fantasy based stuff. I didn't do that, and neither did I bring one of the fantasy books I wanted to read in 2025 to this either. So, I'm still working on that. I used to be a huge, particularly YA fantasy reader, but I did go out of my wheelhouse today with the book that I chose because one of my favorite authors wrote it, and I trusted her implicitly, and I was right to do so. So I cannot wait to tell you about my first five-star read of 2026.
Well, that puts me next. Hello, I'm Emily. I have certainly been here before. I read a lot of different stuff. I go through phases. January seems to be manga month for me. I've read like 18 of them so far this month. Um, I don't know. That's more than usual, but it's happened. I like a lot of speculative fiction. I like a lot of like the fantasy and sci-fi trappings, a lot of that type of thing. And I am typically a sucker for a good romance. So,
Oh, I guess it's my turn.
mhm.
I'm Des. I'm Michaela's problem, really. That's how I got here. I've been here several times, again, because I'm her problem. Um, I usually read fantasy or something LGBTQ related. Lately, I've been on a huge horror kick, but I did not bring a horror book. I brought a fun little anime. So that's going to be fun, I think. So yeah, you know, here we are.
And then there's me. I'm Michaela. Hi. You probably recognize me as a person who talks a lot about horror. I read a lot of queer lit, a lot of speculative lit, but my house is horror. That's usually what I'm talking about here on the channel. And I also am not bringing a horror book because I read so freaking many in the last several months that I have been a little bit burnt out on the genre. Not that I would never pick it up again, but I needed some palate cleansers. So I'm going with a like light portal fantasy to talk about today. So that will be fun.
All right. So my book has actually been on a reading roundtable before I read it. Because I brought this book after I went to the signing where I met this author and I had them sign it. And I came on that reading roundtable and I was like, I'm so excited this happened, but I didn't read it because I'm having a reading problem. And I think I talked about a podcast instead, but I'm back and I did it. So this is These Summer Storms by Sarah McLean. I love Sarah McLean. She has now written over 30 books, but all of them but this one are historical romance. And you will have heard me talk about her on the channel before. I have reviewed arcs of a number of her books. When I did very long ago in the age of COVID, my historical romance tier ranking video, I made her one of my number ones consistently. She has never written a bad book. And I've read all of her books. And historical romance is not really my wheelhouse. I tend to get a little bit bored by some of the more repetitive plots of that genre. She is the best. Are some of her books better than others? Yes, of course. Like you can't write 30 books and knock them all out of the park 5 stars. But just incredible. And also, one of the things that I love, so obviously when I went to the signing, she talked about this book, but also about her love of the genre of romance. She has a podcast that's called Fated Mates, where she talks about, like, with other romance authors about the genre. And she's someone who really thinks a lot about like genre studies in terms of romance, which is not something that a lot of people do, because a lot of people who are focused on genre studies discount romance as like one of those like fluffy, like airy things that is not like real literature. So when you also hear her talk about how much thought she puts into like what it means to write a good romance and a feminist romance, that type of thing, it's really awesome. So I love her as a person. I love her as a writer. But this book, These Summer Storms, is not a historical romance. You may be able to guess by the cover, nor is it a capital R romance. So this is a literary fiction romance, which means that while there is a romance plotline, it is not stuck following the romance plots, nor does it have to end with a happy ending, because that's the main promise of a capital R romance, is that it ends with a happy ending. Instead, this is the story of Alice Storm. In the opening of the book, she is returning to her family's island. She is the daughter of a billionaire who basically, he's not obviously real, but in this world, he's essentially like a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates, someone who, at the age of the dawning of computers, built world life-changing technology in his garage, and then, ended up becoming a billionaire. She has been completely excised from her family for the last 5 years. You'll learn why as the book goes on. But she has not been home and has not seen her father, her mother, her brother Sam, or either of her sisters, Greta and Emily, in 5 years. On the train, she meets a brooding businessman named Jack. And they end up having a one-night stand before she shows up at the family island. She gets there and you learn how utterly dysfunctional her family is. Her mother, Elizabeth, is one of those just like very cold, like doesn't even want them to call her mom, like society matron types, who is like trying to plan her husband's funeral, but like she wouldn't even call it a funeral. She just keeps calling it a celebration and talking about what kind of canapé she's going to order. There's her brother Sam, who is the only son in this billionaire family, and so he's like a little bit spoiled. He has a very, very awful wife named Seela and 2 kids. And he's just kind of like in the beginning, he's presented as like the stereotypical, like selfish boy child of a billionaire family. Greta, who's given up her entire life to help her mom, and kind of like try to follow in her shadow. And then Emily, who is the baby of the family, owns a crystal and Reiki shop, is married to a wonderful woman named Claudia, who might be one of the only amazing, like fully rounded best characters in this book. Because the whole point is that all of these people, to a certain extent, are terrible people, but they're also real people. And so basically, as Alice is getting reacquainted with all of her family members, the executor of her father's will shows up, and by the way, it's Jack. And he announces that the terms of their father's will says they can only inherit all of their money if they all follow these instructions that he left them in a letter. This guy, Franklin Storm, he used to have his kids compete against each other all the time. He would call it the Storm Olympics. Physically, mentally, whatever it is, they all had to always compete. And so they think this is going to be no different. So Sam, for example, he gets the task that he has to do manual labor for a week. And also he can only speak during the even numbered hours. So every odd numbered hour, he can't speak.
Okay.
Emily reads her letter and says that her job is to do nothing. And everybody's like, oh, of course, because she's the baby and she's like, you know, blah, blah, blah. You'll learn out later what's actually going on. Greta's task is she has been not so secretly sleeping with her father's chauffeur for 10 years. They have a very intense and loving relationship. But she has always been too afraid to kind of bring that out into public. And her job is to break up with him. And his wife's job is to say something nice about him every single day. And Alice's challenge is to stay. She has to stay on the island for the whole week. And so Alice is like, yeah, nope, I walked away. I'm not letting this man like control my life anymore. I'm leaving. But the terms are that if one of them fails, no one inherits. So of course it becomes like, at one point she ends up locked in a cellar because she's like trying to leave and they're like, no, we need our money. So anyway, it starts off like very stereotypical and you're like, oh my God, like her entire family is terrible people. And like, I'm so glad that she got away and she should not do anything for any of these people. They're super awful. And one of the things that I really, really love about Sarah's writing always is she is an exceptional character writer. And like, if you told me that by the end of the book, I would have like sympathy and empathy and even a little bit of love for Sam, I would have been like, this would never happen. This man is a douche. But like, she's so good at like, because it's primarily Alice's point of view. It is third person, but it's primarily told from her point of view. Sam, Greta, and Emily each get one POV chapter where they're narrating where it's really important, where you see a little bit more about them. But she just kind of so masterfully, as Alice gets to know her family, you get to know her family. And like, she definitely has some working class friends that show up intermittently to be like, Alice, honey, you're making some poor little rich girl like remarks here. Like, you think you separated from this whole thing, but like, I need you to hear what you just said. But yeah, it was just like it's just like an amazing character book, I think. Really, really well written. And again, about family and like the decisions that we make in a really dysfunctional family and how different people kind of like change or adjust or rebel in order to like try to either find their place or, you know, reject the thing that's being thrust upon them. So yeah, it was really, I did not expect to love it. I'm going to be very honest with you. This is the type of book that for me, I wouldn't read if it hadn't been written by Sarah, because it's not the type of plot that really interests me. I'm not a huge lit fic person. And I was like 100 pages in and John's like, my fiance, he's like, how's it going? And I'm like, it's fine. I'm like, it's really, really well written. Like, it's executed really well, but I don't really know if I'm like driving with it. It's not really my thing. It doesn't really spark joy. And he came out like an hour later and he goes, oh, you're still here. And I was like, shut up. Shut up. I got to keep going. I got to keep reading. Because like I said, there's a little bit of a slow burn to it. You have to let some of these like characters who seem more terrible kind of like grow on you a little bit. Yeah, I really, really liked it. And would I say that it's like one of my favorite books of all time? Probably not. But like at the end of the day, I don't see any other rating to give it than 5 stars, because there was nothing about it for what it is that I'd change. Like, I really loved, and I mean, that whole thing about like, again, how did I like Sam by the end of the book? It's flabbergasting to me. And it's just the hallmark of a really great writer who can like take you along that journey of like how, you know, you think that this story is set up to be this one good person and all these terrible rich people. And actually, it's all just gray, because that's who we are as people. We're all just gray. Including Alice, who, I mean, definitely is like the best of them, for sure. But as they also make clear to her, like, you know, she was allowed to rebel in ways that they weren't, because she was her father's favorite. So there's even like the, you know, you think that you were special and like doing all this stuff, but like he let you do that in ways that he didn't let us like get away with some of this stuff. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I was really, really scared that this was going to be the first time that I'd have to be like, I didn't really like the Sarah McLean book, which I've never ever said in my entire life. But yeah, I love this book. I'm really happy for her that she took the chance on writing this other thing. When she was speaking at the bookstore, you know, she was even surprised that she would want to write outside of historical romance. She wasn't sure. She was really scared about how it would be received and how it would go. She does obviously plan to continue writing historical romance. But I also think that it's cool when authors, you know, change it up and try to do something new. So yeah, if you like a good character book, there is a romance plot. It is there. Obviously not as like it's not central because it's not a romance. This is a family story. That does have a happy ending, which was my fear. It's a happy ending. It's a thoughtful ending. You know, not everything is resolved ending, but kind of more like a new beginning, shall we say, for this family. So yeah, I loved it. I'm really, really glad that I know we picked this challenge. I know that that's like selfish to say, but I'm glad that we did it because I'm glad that I finally read this. It's been staring at me on my shelf with my signed copy. I really liked it. And I really, really needed some happiness with the way that my month is going. So thanks, Sarah. Highly, highly, highly recommended. Again, if this doesn't sound like your cup of tea, I've reviewed a whole bunch of her actual historical romances on the channel, but you can go check out. But like I said, just start anywhere. They're all good.
At first, I was going to say it was reminding me of We Were Liars, but by the time you got to the part about how, like, oh, they all have to, like, do these things to inherit, it actually reminded me of A Very Typical Family by Sierra Godfrey,
Okay.
I'm not sure which, but I hated it. I hated that book. So it's about, like, these three siblings. The youngest put the two older ones in prison. It was a whole complicated thing. But the way they resolved it was like too easy. But the way they all came back together was the mom died, and the only way they could have the inheritance is if all three of them came back to the house. So it reminded me of that. But I hated A Very Typical Family. Not the vibe. Didn't like it. But that one sounds like something I would actually read because I loved We Were Liars. And at first I was like, okay, this is my cup of tea. And I was like, wait, maybe it's more like this, but I think I'd actually like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, you know, hard conversations that they have, right? But also like there's a moment where Claudia decides that she's really done with how uptight Elizabeth is being, the mom, and she tries to give her a little bit of mushroom, and it turns out that she misdoes the dose. I can't remember if it's weed or what it is, and like Elizabeth just ends up like high.
Just macrodose your mom.
Yeah.
See, I'm already here for it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Claudia, like I said, Claudia is one of the people who she very clearly really, really loves Emily. And in a family where nobody has each other's back, she's just like, I swear to God, if you touch one hair on my wife's head, I will kill you. Which is really wonderful. And then Alice has a friend named Gabby who is a lawyer, but also, you know, grew up working class. And she's known Alice for a really long time. And so she's like not afraid to be like, yeah, your family's really shitty, but also check yourself on what you just said because your privilege is showing. So yeah, even the side characters were so well done. But yes, I would go to war for Claudia. I think she's probably, her and Emily are like my favorite characters. And I can't even tell you why, because there's a whole like plot with, again, Emily, me keep saying Emily is so weird because obviously there's an Emily here, but book Emily turns out to, like, you know, you think she's just like the airhead, you know, owns a crystal shop that daddy paid for type of a thing. And then by the end of the book, you realize that she's probably one of the smarter and most well-adjusted of any of them. But I can't tell you why, because it would ruin a lot of stuff. But yeah, I loved her a lot.
Do you think, like, the cover says beach read to me, but this doesn't feel like popcorny like a beach read normally I feel
No.
like would be. So that's interesting
No.
to me.
I think we're
I
just
mean-
conditioned to see beach equals beach read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
A lot of things
these
that are not
summer
beachy happen at
storms.
the beach.
The storm bit.
Storm
The,
bit.
the storm bit is the bit. But obviously, I mean, because it does take place, they're on their like private island in Rhode Island.
Ugh.
So that's the setting here. But yeah, they go sailing. Alice takes the train in, and her mother is like, "How pedestrian! Why didn't you use the helicopter?"
Rich people, am I right?
Yeah. So, but
Yikes.
How much
Sarah
could a
is
banana cost? $8.
yeah. Sarah is originally from Rhode Island, so that was another reason why she said it here. She grew up among all of these like mansions and stuff, and so it was like kind of like an imagining of like these stories that she used to tell herself about the people who lived in these houses, sort of thing.
Old money, New England. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I really loved it. I was really, I sat here last night and I was like, I'll put in 100 pages and then I'll just read whatever I can tomorrow. And then I just never moved. I read it in one sitting.
Nice. Shall we move on to Emily?
I was just gonna say, is it me now?
Yeah.
I also read my whole book in one day. That's backwards. Hang on. I can fix that. It's not backwards anymore. Hooray. Several people are typing. It's the book that I read for this month. I meant to read it last year, obviously, and I never got around to it. So I was also glad to have this prompt because I wanted to get around to reading it. Several people are typing is a contemporary novel that is written in the form of Slack IMs, which is sort of a modernization on the epistolary form as a concept. It is a structure, a format that I'm personally really interested in, like as a creative, and it's something that I play with in my own work fairly regularly. So like on that level alone, it was a book that I was really interested in. I always want to see how somebody else approached the concept of like portraying digital communication in print, especially in contexts where like GIF usage is very high and emoji usage is very high, because like technically you can print an emoji, but so like, you know, on a just like a craft level, I was really interested in this book. And then the other part is I've been working in corporate settings for a hot minute. And I've spent the last few years working in a marketing role, and there are certain parts of working in a corporate setting that just are weird, you know, and the kind of thing where you're like, how do you explain this to somebody else? Like, it sounds like I'm making things up. So this book basically is about a PR firm whose employee, Gerald, managed to get sucked into his corporate Slack instance out of his brain. And so now he is stuck perpetually basically at work, and so his productivity goes through the roof. He has, you know, he knows everything, he can access anything, blah blah blah. And like there are various things that are inconvenient about this, and like other people are starting to get pretty grouchy about him stretching their work from home policy. You know, it's starting to like be problematic for other people and all of this stuff and blah blah blah. And he's like, I'm stuck in Slack. If someone could help me, that would be great. And nobody believes him because apparently they're just a group of people who do bits. So that's that. Throughout the course of this book, we have a plot line for one of their clients, which is a dog food company based in New Jersey called Bjork.
Yark. With a J?
BJA
Yep.
with an umlaut. RK. Bjark.
Bjark.
Bjark. Anyway, yeah, so they have a client called Bjark out of New Jersey that is currently in crisis mode because they had like some of their food had an issue, an unknown issue, and a couple of Pomeranians died because of something that was added to the food and how the like Pomeranians specifically their livers interacted with it and whatever. So they're in crisis mode trying to deal with this, okay? If you work PR or marketing, you'll be familiar with the concept of an ideal customer profile. And what this is it is a way to personify the people that you're trying to sell your product to. So you'll say, for example, this is Jenny. She's 29 years old. She is, middlingly educated. She's interested in these three things. She's probably on these specific social media platforms. She cares about these particular causes. She is blah, 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 blah. Like married, single, like all of like any details you can come up with. Like you're creating an entire person. And then you're saying, this is our customer profile. When you are writing your ad copy and your tweets and all of the like your social media stuff, all of the ad copy should be directed at this ideal customer profile. Like this is the type of person that we're trying to sell to. And the idea is that you approach this as if this profile is a real person. Okay. And usually there are a few of them, but you should probably, the ideal is to be limited. But anyway, so one of the gags in the book is that they have 3 customer profiles. And the first one is Maggie, and the second one is Dina, and the third one is 3 with no information. And anytime someone is sharing these things, and then like the person who receives it is like, hey, what about that third one? It's never answered. Like that's the only message out of like 3 that gets completely ignored by the sender every single time. And the second you chase, like their status goes to do not disturb, which is so real. It's so real, you guys. I can't even express to you how real this problem is. Hilarious. But anyway, so like there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on throughout the course of this book between this PR crisis, which you eventually do like get to the bottom of, and Gerald being stuck in the Slack instance. And there's a point toward the end of the book where Slackbot escapes containment, wakes up as Gerald is trying to like escape Slack and he is trying to talk to the Slackbot. He wakes up the Slackbot AI, which then further escapes containment and hijacks his body for a hot minute. And so then Gerald and a coworker who gets sort of roped into taking care of his body that is found. It's a whole thing. Basically, like as a team, they have to like trick Slackbot in Gerald's body to opening the program that caused him this problem in the first place, like a specific file. And so then like they make the switch and it's like, the end, blah blah blah. But like it was very clever. It was very well done, and it was a really fun read. There's a segment that is really beautiful in its way, kind of dead center in the middle, where Gerald is like having effectively an existential crisis about barely existing at this point. Like there's no sensation. It's just like you become aware of like the fact that you haven't smelled anything the whole time in ages, and now it's like, God, I miss any smell ever.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of going on this little tirade to Slackbot, and he's talking about how like it's so impossible to explain and describe the sublime in any way that actually gets to the heart of what the sublime is. And it's like looking at a sunset. You can never do it for too long because your brain slides off the bits because like it's too much to look at all at once. Like it's too much beauty, it's too many things, the sky's too big, all this, etc. And it's this concept of like being so small and a part of something so big and experiencing so many things at once both physically and psychologically, that like you can't have as a digital existence. And Slackbot is just like, would you like to be a sunrise? And so then basically he gets sucked into a sunrise GIF and then spends like 4 days lost being a GIF because he's just like scattered across the internet everywhere someone calls this specific sunset GIF in Slack, and it took him 4 days to escape it. And like it's this really clever and interesting thing, and like everything that Gerald says to the Slackbot while in there like comes back to haunt him later when Slackbot escapes. There are a number of gags and a handful of like genuinely really earnest and sweet moments throughout that I really enjoyed it. I also read it in one sitting in about an hour last night, so had a good time.
Nice.
So I'm super. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, did you read those? I think they're middle grade books that were like AIM chat books, like way back when.
I read a few. Oh yeah, I read a few.
So it's like an elevated version of that, is what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
What it like looks like on the page. Does it physically look like a Slack thing, or is it just like lines back and forth?
It's just like, oh wow, thanks Blur. It's not going to show you. It's so like it's structured. It's just print on the page like this, but it has it structured so like the usernames are there, and then let me see if I can find a page with a channel. Switch. There'll be like these where it'll tell you what the room is here as it's moving through, because he has access to everything.
Right.
Like every IM anybody has ever sent anybody in this Slack instance, he has access to, which is an adventure because there are also additional shenanigans happening. And then there's another character named Lydia who also gets disappeared in the middle of the thing, and like her whole thing is bizarre.
Okay, here's my secondary question, because my question was also going to be, what does it look like on the page, right? Secondarily, is his body not decrepit by the time he gets back to it?
Okay, so after
the rotting?
So after like the first week or two or whatever, he convinces one of his coworkers to go over to his apartment to check on it to see if he even like still has a body, right? Because like at first he doesn't know, he's stuck in the Slack. It's not like he can go look. So he has a coworker go check on him, and his body is indeed just sitting there, basically as if in a coma. And you know, it had done as bodies do. And so then this coworker like basically was IMing him like, so you're here and I believe you now, and this is weird as hell. What do we like, what now? And so he would basically treated it like cat sitting for a hot minute. Basically, he would cut himself checks using Gerald's wallet to go buy adult diapers and like protein shakes and whatever. And he would come by once or twice a day to like change him and feed him and whatever, and like blah blah blah. Well, then a few like time passes, at least a few days to a few weeks, I guess, I don't know, but at any rate, one day Pradeep, this friend, messages him and is like, so I moved you into my apartment because I didn't want to keep traveling, and my roommate moved out, so I had a room, and I was like, well, if I'm going to keep babysitting your body, like, I bet you should probably be closer. So congrats, you're my roommate, and I'll be paying your rent with your checks. So yeah.
Cool. I was just curious. Because you were like, Slackbot eventually takes over his body, and I was like the rotting corpse.
No, he is kept alive. He is kept alive by a coworker. Yeah.
Assumption there though is that he could have died.
Oh yeah,
because he wasn't eating. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the first day that Slackbot is in Gerald's body, they go to like a Subway for lunch, and he gets a meatball sub and eats the whole thing, and then spends the rest of the day like experiencing pain, don't understand why hurt, like what is this, you know?
Yeah.
And Pradeep has to be like, yeah, dude, you've been on a liquid diet for like a month and a half. You're gonna be ill. Like, that's not good. That's not good.
Oh my god.
Also, Subway being
Incredible.
your first
Yeah,
meal
I know, right?
after not
I
eating
know.
anything. Probably not ideal.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was
it's
gonna say
like
that's a choice.
It's yeah, it's a choice. It was very lightweight. It was absolutely not challenging in any way whatsoever. Um, I zipped through it again in an hour. It was worth reading for sure. I'm glad that I did, but like I mean, it's pretty low impact, to be honest. It's just kind of a bit of a romp. Um, if you've worked in a corporate office setting and dealt with people that exist in corporate office settings, parts of this will feel very funny. If you have not, I feel like a lot of this is just going to be like where you read the thing and you're like, okay, like, is that supposed to be funny? Why the fuck won't you answer this weirdo's question? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's only funny if you've done it before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why is it that every time you come talk to me, you ignore the only question that matters? Why will you respond to every single message but the important one?
Yep.
Why? And then yeah, it's a thing.
Oh, corporate.
Yeah. The best part is that when you get yourself into a position where you're the person also doing it. As the content manager, from time to time, you just have to be like, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that question and move on with my life. If I didn't answer, I can pretend I never saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's what it is. Is like, I don't want responsibility for doing the thing, so I'm
I
just
don't
gonna
know, and I'm not
move
going to give you
on.
an answer just in case it's wrong, because then it's my ass and I refuse to make it my ass.
Yep.
I don't work in corporate. I work in a prison, literally.
Okay.
And there are so many times where I will just ignore an email and I'm like, you know what? It's not my problem. And I just ignore it and pretend I
That
didn't
is
see it.
above my pay grade.
I have looked
Someone
at
else's.
my essential duties, my list of jobs. This is not on it.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
This isn't on it. I'm not doing it. Yeah, I know. I just ignore emails, but I'm like, I didn't see it. I was busy. Sorry.
I look at it and I go to like respond as if like I'll take care of this or like I'll look into it, and then I reread it and go, is this really my job though? No. I'm just gonna move on. I'll support if needed. This is not my circus, and those are not my monkeys. These armadillos, on the other hand, those are mine.
Those are mine.
All right, Des.
Okay. So there's a little backstory to this before I get into the book. So last year, around this time, I started this series called Heaven Official's Blessing. I was fixated on this series. First of all, I read the entire thing in like 2 weeks. Second of all, I was fixated on it for like 6 months, obsessed. And I wanted to read more books by the author. So for my birthday, Michaela and her hubby got me one of her other series, which is the Scum Villain Self-Saving System. It sat on my shelf since August and has not been touched until now. So I went into it with really, really high hopes. So I'm going to talk about the series as a whole, but I'm going to hold up the first book. So this is the first book. It is very pretty, if you can see it.
So I love the art.
Oh yeah, it's
I do
beautiful.
too.
And it is really well written. It just didn't hit the same for me as Heaven Official's Blessing. I'm gonna butcher these names, so please no one come for me. I know I can't say them. They are originally in Chinese, so forgive me. So what it's about is there's this character who is reading this online published, it's not technically a web novel, I don't think, but it's like, or fan fiction, but it's this online published novel called Proud Immortal Demon Way. And it's about this half demon named Luo Bingye. I'm definitely butchering these. And it's his story about how he becomes this villain. And the reason he becomes this villain is his teacher, Shen Quinku, is the one who abuses him and does all these horrible things to him. So he's basically a product of his environment. So this person that is reading this book dies when he finishes reading this book. And as he dies, I don't even know how he died, but he dies. He gets sucked into this AI like computer system type of deal. And what it does is it inserts him into this reality that is this book, and he is the villain. So he is the teacher, Shen Kinku, and he has to basically stop his own death from happening because he dies because of what he did to the main character. So what he has to do is he has to stick to like being a scum villain, so being this horrible person, but he also has to try to prevent his death. So until he gets so many points, he can't act out of character or he loses points. So for part of it, he like toes the line of being a total piece of shit to this kid. Mind you, at the beginning of the book, this kid is like 9-10 years old. So not great. And by the time he starts being nice enough to him that he breaks, like he gets the points and he can go out of character, he essentially raises him like up until he's like 15 or 16. And it's like a teacher student type of deal. But what happens instead is Luo Bingwei ends up becoming like devoted to him and like idolizes him, not like obsessed with him in a creepy way, but obsessed with him. And it gets to this point where Shen realizes he has to push him into the abyss anyway and basically turn him into the villain regardless. So the first book is him basically being like, okay, I'm trying not to be a shitty person, but I have to toe the line because the system won't let me. And then their relationship developing as a teacher and student, and him having all this faith in him, and then ultimately shoving him into this abyss. So he goes to the demon realm as he's half demon. So I did not finish this book in one day. Because it didn't hit this, and it's not bad. It's not bad at all. But this was her first series, and you can tell in comparison to Heaven Official's Blessing. Because this story is wrapped up in 3 books technically, other than like extra content that is book 4. While Heaven Official's Blessing is 8 books. Super slow burn. So good, top tier. But so this one, I was reading it and I'm like, okay, it's not bad. Like her writing is fine, but I'm bored. Like this is not what I thought it was going to be. So I got about halfway through and then shit hit the fan and I was like, okay, I'm here for this. I'm here for this. So I binge read it. Started the second book and was super bored again. Got about 60 pages in and I told Michaela, I was like, I don't know if I can finish this. And I'm so sad because I really like her writing. And I forced myself to keep going. So it spans about 3 years after he's pushed it. And so now he's an adult, the protagonist, and he gets out of hell essentially and is trying to find Shen, thank you, so he can get revenge on him for what he did, because he doesn't understand why it happened. He doesn't understand why this person that he thought cared for him did this horrible thing. So it becomes a cat and mouse chase through the entire book. And I was telling Michaela that Luo Bingwei is insane. He is off his fucking rocker. He is psychotic. He does the most out-of-pocket fucked up shit trying to catch this man. I'm here for it. It's hysterical. I'm laughing my ass off. I'm rooting for him because he's my favorite and he's like the whole reason I continued reading the book. But it starts crossing that weird line because you find out that part of his obsession is because his feelings shifted to romantic feelings and desire. And it's common in this type of literature for that line to be towed because Shen Kinku is technically immortal. He looks like he's 20. I don't know if Luo technically is or not, but he is something. So when this romance subplot is happening, they're consenting adults, but it's still a little weird because, you know, teacher student, like he raised them, like it's a little questionable, but they're adults, so like you gotta do what you gotta do. So that's going on and he is in complete denial. He doesn't understand how he made his student gay. Like it's a whole thing. There's some internalized homophobia, but eventually he catches him, and I have not finished the third book, but I started it, and it goes into them trying to accept each other for who they are, and I don't know how that's going to play out. I know they end up together just because that's how these books go, but I don't know how it plays out, and I know he Luo is very screwed up in the head, and I love him, so purely going to finish it for him. And then the last book is a collection of different stories about Luo's parents, and then about Luo and Shen, and like all sorts of stuff like that. So I haven't decided if I'm going to move on to something else and come back to that later, or if I'm just going to read it all in one go. So I ultimately, why I was explaining this is it's very different than her more recent stuff, like Heaven Official's Blessing. It is by, I'm going to butcher her name, so I'm not even going to try to say it. It's not as polished as her more recent work. Like this one is more, it reads self-published, even though technically it's not. I don't think it had as much editing, but it's not bad. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad. So I think I rated the first book at like 3 something stars. The second one I liked more, so I rated that one about 4. I don't know how I feel about the third one yet, but there's still kind of like that tension of, 1, will they, won't they, and 2, like figuring out like what is going to happen between them in the next 300 pages that wraps this all up. So it's not bad. I haven't read her other series, which is Grandmaster Demon Cultivation or something. The Untamed series, like TV series, is based off of it. I've never watched it, but I know it's based off of that. So I'm going to give that one a go at some point, and that one's a more recent one as well. But I thought it was interesting reading her earlier writing compared to how she writes more recently, because you can see this like the significant growth. So I thought that was entertaining. I didn't realize I was going to talk that long.
Do you know, because I don't know anything about this series, but I know that like all 3 of these series got translated like intermittently at about the same time, because they were titles that were like big as they were coming out. Were they published online initially, or was it just okay, so it was like a not a web novel, but like something similar to that,
like something
like
else,
serially published chapter by chapter?
I think it was technically a web novel.
Okay.
It wasn't like a webtoon, but
Right.
I think it was technically a web novel, and they were originally published in I want to say Chinese. And these ones were published by Seven Seas Entertainment, and they were translated. Okay. But there is some discourse in the community, like her fan base, that some of them weren't translated correctly. So there's different arguments about it. Things not coming across the page right, which I can see, because some things come across and you're like, okay, but it really just kind of depends on your perspective. So yeah, all of these were translated roughly at the same time, but I want to say this one came out in like 2015. I can check. Yeah, 2015 this originally came out, and I think Heaven Official's Blessing originally came out like 2018, 2019. That series, oh, chef's kiss. It's like 8 books long, slow burn. The romance isn't until book 6. So good. I think this is technically a fantasy. I don't know though. Like a sci-fi loosely.
It's like an isekai thing where you get like sucked into another world, and
like that. It's something.
I mean, you started talking and I was like, oh, you and Emily brought weirdly like parallel things.
Yeah.
Because I think that is so true about like also the order in which you read someone's books, even if they're not a series, right? But like that's why Michaela and I on our we have an intermittent, and we're bringing it back this year, about like reading, like we call it a second chance book of a book from an author where we were like, I see the vision. The vision did not quite work. And for that reason of like, I see things here that I will like if they were a little bit better. And like, will that next book that you do, because I really think, I mean, we're all creative people here. Like in some ways, sometimes you write the story or you write the book to have learned.
Yes.
And then you're like, okay, I can't necessarily fix everything in this, but I can use what I've learned from this to go on
Yes.
to the next
Which is
project.
what she did. So Heaven Official's Blessing is 8 books. The Grandmaster's Demon Cultivation is 6, I want to say. And this one's only technically 3, but she has all the extra stuff that she released eventually. I think if this one was longer and more fleshed out, rather than, because there's so many time skips, because at the beginning of the book, he's like 9 or 10. He gets to the end of the book, and it's only like not even 300 pages. He's like 16, 17. So it skips so much, and you lose so much of their relationship and why things are happening the way they're happening. So it felt rushed, where with her more recent stuff, it's not. Like, it's very slow burn, it's drawn out. So I think that's part of why I struggle with this, is it feels not forced, but rushed. So I'm like, where's like the stuff around it, basically? Like, where's my reasoning? So I don't know, but it's not bad. Like, I'm gonna finish it.
Glad I got it for you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. It only took me, what, 5 months to read it?
It's okay.
I like how Michaela forced you to read Michaela's gift. Essentially what this reading roundtable turned into.
Oh, no, that's not what happened. I was gonna read something else, and then I was like, no, I actually should read this because you got it for me, and I meant to read it months ago, but I got distracted.
Hey
by
man,
other
that's
books.
why we had the thing.
Yeah, no, now I read it. So I mean, I read the first 2, and I'm like, I think 100 pages into the 3rd, so we'll see. I'll finish it.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay, I am going to talk about Water Moon by Samantha Soto Yambao. This is a 2025 release. It came out about this time last year. Clearly, I have a hardcover, so I picked it up right when it came out. I had intended to read it, obviously, when it came out. You don't pick up a hardcover if you're not like, I want to read this, because they're expensive. This is... if I was going to do an elevator pitch for this, I would say if Spirited Away is your favorite Ghibli movie, you will love this book. It follows, or at least opens, with Hana, who works in it's a metaphysical pawn shop is how I'm going to talk about it. Her pawn shop exists in the same space that in our world a ramen shop exists. And every once in a while, a person who thought they were standing in line to get into this ramen shop in Tokyo winds up inside this pawn shop instead. The opening is on her father's last day running the pawn shop. She is meant to take over the pawn shop tomorrow. And you sort of get the introduction to the world and the way this works when a affluent woman comes into the pawn shop and her father works at getting her to pawn something over. Now, they don't pawn physical items. The things that you pawn in this pawn shop is a choice that you made. Usually it is something that the person regrets. So the way that he gets them to give over this choice is to say that they will no longer have the regret associated with wondering, like, what if? And depending on what they give up, it could be greater or lesser. And so for her, she's giving up a choice that she made like way long ago in the past, where she could have gone with a boy that she was dating at the time to meet him for dinner, or not, and then that one singular instance changed the trajectory of her life forever. And over the course of the book, you'll find out there was like more to that specific choice than just whether or not to go to dinner with this boy that she was seeing. But that's the initial thing. That shows up as some sort of object. The object in this case was a handful of coins that would have been the bus fare to get on the bus to go to the dinner. But you've heard them talk about, like, sometimes it's a compact mirror or something else. Like, it's some small object that they just find in their pocket that they give over. And then when they leave the pawn shop, it's as if that choice never existed. They completely forget what that would have been, and they go back to their life. You find out through discussions that Hana's mother stole one of these choices at some point in the past, and that there is like a spiritual I don't know, like a fox spirit type thing that comes and collects all of these choices, and that They're very important to the society that they live in. So if something goes missing, it's bad. And because she stole one of these choices, her mother is exiled, which is basically kicked out into our world. But the people from their world, when kicked into our world, disappear. Like it's essentially a death sentence. They'll die. Cut to the next day. Hana wakes up on what's supposed to be her first day running the pawn shop. She comes downstairs, the entire pawn shop ransacked. Everything is thrown on the ground. The vault that holds all the choices is open, and that choice from that woman yesterday is missing, and her dad is missing. The spiritual, like, box spirit people that show up, they're actually like mechanized. They like wear masks and stuff. Like, you don't fully know what they look like. And they're like, "Where's your dad? Where's this choice?" And she's like, "I'm assuming he went after whoever took the choice." Because I don't know any of this. I was sleeping. Once they leave, she is looking at the scene a little bit closer and realizes that her dad may have been the one to take that choice because it's like too perfectly staged and set up. And her mother's glasses are like set right at the entrance to the door to the shop, which those are normally in his desk. Like, they're like very protected. It's one of the last things he has of his wife. And then as she's like figuring this out and realizing, oh, he maybe took this choice and was just trying to make it seem like it was a theft so that I wouldn't get implied or blamed over what was happening here, a young man enters the shop. His name is Cation. He initially is like, "I need to help this woman. She's bleeding. She stepped in broken glass." Like, that brings him to then help her try and run after and find her father, to get back this choice and whatever is going on. They go through all sorts of weird things. Like, that one point they travel through a rumor. Like, they travel by dream. They, like, it's very surreal. And like, they go to a night market full of people who are selling lost items that are like people's socks that they don't have, or like whatever else. They go to a library that's filled with the things that are never spoken out loud. Like, there's all of these different like weird metaphysical places that they're going to and ways that they're traveling, and it's very magical in a like Studio Ghibli-esque way. Like, it's not super creepy. There's a little bit of creepiness in those creatures that are chasing them the whole time. But it's very, I'm saying wonderful in the way of like full of wonder, not in like wonderful I loved it. I did enjoy this book, but like that's my intonation here, is that it is very wonderful. I ended up giving it 4 stars, I want to say, because there is a relationship element between Hana and Cation as the book goes on. And because it is so plot focused and like so setting focused, I didn't fully buy into their like falling in love over the course of the story. Like, there was too much going on to like build their relationship. And it did have like a third act reveal, which is often happens in a romance thing, where I was like, I don't fully believe the emotions that I'm getting from these characters based on what I know of these characters. So I'll give the caveat of that, at least for me, that it wasn't like 100% like the best book and fully realized, but if what you're looking for is like a magical experience and like, I want to say cozy, like it is like a cozy fantasy, and that there's stakes, they're being chased by these creatures, but you don't ever really feel like they're in that much danger. It's like, let me grab your hand and we're going to go to the next wonderful magical thing that we're about to experience type chasing through time. So if you're looking for that, I think it would be enjoyable. And again, if you're a Spirited Away person, it feels very much like Studio Ghibli Spirited Away. Like, what new beautiful watercolor technicolor thing am I about to experience next in this book? Yeah, it was a nice way to start the year, I feel like, because this is my first like real read of the year, even though we're a month into January. I haven't fully read anything. I did finish another book after this one, but it was a nice cozy way to start the year, and I would recommend it because, again, 4 stars is a great book. I'm not saying it's a bad book by any by any metric, but I had some issues with it personally.
I added it to my to read list like 20 minutes ago. I'll be real with you.
I would recommend it. It's a good one.
I have it on my Kindle, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, anyone who ever watches my romance reviews will know that every single time that like third act, 75% of the way. I don't know why we decided it has to happen. But I mean, I'm speaking specifically about capital R romances. And because like half the time I'm just like screaming. I'm just like, what character, like author insert shenanigans is happening right now? So yes, this would be if I ruled the world, I would just be like, you know what? We can let this go.
Yeah.
If the characters already have trust issues, we don't need to create some wacko drama to then shove them apart. And then in the last 20 pages, they come back together for some reason. Half the time, I'm like, no, don't kiss again. You're good.
So many
Let it go.
there are so many times where I've been reading a romance novel where it's that third act twist or whatever, when you read it and you're just like, y'all should not get back together after that nonsense. Like, that is unhealthy. Do not put yourself back in that situation. He'll learn for next time. Not your problem anymore, sister. You move on.
I think that was my problem with Sword Heart, is I was like, what the fuck? And then why would you bother getting back together if that was why you broke up? Like, is it why?
Yeah, like, that's
Yeah.
the most valid breakup ever. What are you doing?
Well, I mean, I really, really love the author Beth O'Leary. I think that she has written some of the best romances. Like there's one, it's called The Flat Share, and it's two people who both are they're sharing an apartment, but it's a flat share in the sense they each have it for 12 hours. So they never actually see each other and they like fall in love via post-it note. Or like notes that they're leaving. Oh my god, it's amazing. But her
I'm
latest
here for
one,
that nonsense.
it's so good. And like I mean that's the one where like they're literally like growing a relationship through just like it's so good. But her latest one was called Swept Away, and I was jiving, I was loving it, it was so good. And then that thing happened and I was like, 1-star book. And it was so out of character for an author I've read like 3-4 books from, that I was just like, what what it was so egregious. But I did just review the new Denise Williams, and my entire like love for that book was that never happened. And I was like, some of us can figure it out.
Yeah. I'll say that the twist here wasn't like a you guys should never be together offense. Like it definitely wasn't that. It is more so just the way that they reacted to learning this piece of knowledge that had been hidden, that I was like, from what you have built so far of this character, I don't believe that that's how that character would react to this knowledge. And that's disappointing in itself, because it just seems like author intervention of being like, I need this to happen for the plot to continue. But I don't even think it needed to happen for the plot to continue. I was like, this is unnecessary. Why are we having this? You just wanted some tension between them, I guess? I don't know. Yeah, I guess. There's plenty of drama going on, though. They're still running for their lives. Like,
Not enough.
I don't know what's going on here.
Now they must be hurt and mildly resentful for 2.5 hours.
Pretty much. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Aside from like those handful of things, and I don't know if this author has written other things. It's not an author that I recognize. Well, there are other things. This just might be the first one that I heard of. So it might be worth looking into some of her other works. But yeah, if you're interested in something like cozy fantasy, soft, speculative, portal fantasy type stuff, definitely worth a read, I would think.
So as we wrap up, we are hoping that maybe you went and saw me and Michaela announce our buddy reading challenges for this year. Budding reading, also that maybe. And one of the things that we're doing that is new and super exciting this year is that we have a bonus challenge, which is to read a book voted on by our Reading Roundtable participants. And in this case, the first ever vote is going to Emily and Des. And so if you follow us on social media or saw the short, Michaela did post that graphic, and we encourage you to follow us on either YouTube. Obviously, if you're here, hit that subscribe button, but also to follow us on places like Instagram, where we do post those graphics to follow along. But so what we're doing is we're having our participants agree on one book and one part of the brackets every single time we do a reading roundtable. And so we would like to invite our participants to tell us what they have voted for us and why, starting with Emily and the choice for me.
Yeah, we're going to have Gretchen read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. It is a cozy fantasy romance, and it is so very cute and lightweight and soft and fluffy, and it's a wonderful time. The stakes are very low, but there are stakes. They're just not like the world is ending stakes. They're little stakes, wee stakes. It's a good time. You'll enjoy it.
It's very cute.
And then, Des, what are you picking for me to read?
I love how I just asked you the name of this fucking book and I already forgot it. So we picked a book that is gay poems for Michaela, purely because her and I had a conversation about poetry like a week and a half ago. And she's like, I don't normally read poetry because of this. So when we saw it, we agreed for her to read this one because, ha ha, Michaela, you have to read poetry.
Maybe.
So
still up in there. Other people,
You're gonna do it.
Other people have the chance to vote for other things. We don't know yet, but it is up in the running still. It's
bracket.
It's still up in the running though. So I will allow y'all to make me read poetry. We'll see where we end up here, but I think it's a good choice.
I'm gonna make her read it anyways.
Fair enough.
Come back to a future reading roundtable where it is just we forced Michaela to read poetry and then we all just stare at her.
As I just read it aloud, single tear crying down my face.
I would like a dramatic reading, please.
I have so many poets I can recommend.
Same.
I mean, to be fair, we could also do a poetry reading roundtable.
We could, yeah. That's definitely worthwhile in the future.
Yeah, I will be ill that day, but you guys enjoy.
We'll add it to the list of options for the future.
The last resort, can't think of one. Okay.
I love poetry. Can I speak intelligently about poetry? Ask someone else.
I love poetry, but don't ask me to do literary critiques of it, because I'm just be like, I don't know, I just liked it.
I like what it's doing. I like how it's on the paper.
Yeah.
In the shape that it's in.
Yes.
I love words, guys. And this person put words in lines.
It sounds.
It's so great.
Sounds good.
It speaks to me because it's emo as fuck.
There's a vibe happening here. I'm super down with it. I'm into this. It's a good vibe. Good vibe, folks.
I love it.
So look forward to this, because I feel like the more that all of us commit to this bit, the more we're committed to the idea. So I'm going to stop us here before I get dragged down with this ship. So weirdly, Michaela and I have not only planned our February content, we've already filmed half of it. This never happens. So I just want you all to witness this. So we have a very exciting video coming up for you in February for the two of us. This is the promised video about our 2025 Buddy Reading Challenge, bonus challenge that we finally completed. Weirdly, Sarah McLean will make a reappearance. This was not intentional. But what we did was each of us chose a favorite author and then read a book that this author recommended. So I chose Sarah McLean and I read a book that she recommended. And Michaela did the same, but with horror, because we are who we are. It was a really interesting video to film, despite picking two very different authors. We also ended up with the same exact reaction to the books that they recommended. So it's a really great discussion. I can't wait for you guys to see that video. And then we will have another reading roundtable in February. This one will again bring back two returning guests, and that one is unthemed. So none of us know, maybe even by this point, what we're bringing, because we're just going to be bringing whatever we're reading at the time. And that will be February for us. And hopefully it's all on time, knock on wood. But you know, we started off on a good foot with one of the videos already recorded. And so Betwixt the Books is just off on a high note. High note this January. I haven't missed a Monday. We've got pre-recorded content. This may only last February, so let's enjoy it while it's here. But again, we would like to thank Des and Emily for participating, not only in the roundtable, for bringing books, for being our first ever bracket voters and dealing with us while we have figured this out. And we are excited to see you all next time and potentially down the road with poetry. Thanks, guys. Bye.